The amplifier hum cut through the room before anyone touched a string. Prince stood near the center of the rehearsal space, one hand resting on the neck of his guitar, eyes fixed on Eric Clapton across the floor. The date was late evening, according to accounts, after a charity event that had pulled top-tier musicians into the same building. The turning point object was already in play, a Stratocaster hanging from Clapton's shoulder, angled slightly upward as he tested a chord. Prince didn't move. He raised his hand once, flat palm, no smile, and the room went silent. The jam session stopped before it started. People in the room later described the freeze as immediate. Clapton's fingers hovered above the strings. A drummer behind them loosened his grip on the sticks. Prince said something short, reportedly calm, but firm enough that no one asked him to repeat it. The anchor detail that stuck was the gesture, that raised hand, that single command without volume. In that instant, the stakes were clear. This wasn't about ego alone. It was about authorship, about who controlled the moment, and about whether a casual jam could turn into a story Prince didn't own. Days earlier, the environment had been set very differently. The anchor detail then was the invitation itself, passed quietly through managers and musicians' assistants. A loose, late-night jam, no cameras, no billing, just guitars, amps, and legends. Eric Clapton's presence had electrified the idea. According to insiders, his name alone made the room feel historic before anyone arrived. Prince knew this. He also knew how quickly historic could become misinterpreted. The music industry rules at that time were rigid beneath the surface. Collaboration sounded democratic, but credit was currency. The anchor detail was always the tape: who recorded, who released, who benefited. Clapton came from a blues rock lineage where jams were conversation. Prince came from a world where every note was intentional, every performance part of a larger design. The room that night wasn't neutral ground, it was Prince's territory. Earlier that same day, Prince had reportedly rehearsed alone in the same space. The anchor detail was his guitar setup, pedals aligned precisely, amps calibrated to his touch. He wasn't preparing for chaos, he was preparing for control. When word reached him that Eric Clapton would be part of the jam, witnesses say Prince paused longer than usual, then asked one question: "What's the plan?" No one had an answer that satisfied him. By early evening, musicians filtered in. The anchor detail was the sound check, Clapton bending a note, letting it ring. Some in the room smiled, others glanced toward Prince, reading his posture. He listened, head slightly tilted, absorbing not just the sound but the implication. A jam like this could easily turn into a Clapton showcase by default, not by malice, by gravity. The tension sharpened when someone suggested a blues standard. The anchor detail was the song choice itself, reportedly familiar to Clapton's catalog. Prince didn't object out loud, he simply didn't nod. That absence of approval landed heavier than a refusal. The system waited for his cue anyway. Minutes later came the moment. Clapton adjusted his strap, leaned forward and brushed the strings, testing tone, not yet playing. Prince raised his hand. The jam shut down. The anchor detail was the silence that followed, broken only by the amplifier's low buzz. According to those present, Prince said the room wasn't ready. Some recall him saying it wasn't the right time. No insults, no volume, just closure. People shifted uncomfortably. Clapton stepped back, reportedly surprised but composed. The stakes crystallized: push back and fracture the night, or accept the boundary and preserve dignity. No one challenged Prince. That, more than anything, revealed where the power actually sat. The room reset, but the mood didn't recover. Instruments were set down, conversations lowered. The anchor detail was the door opening as someone left early, breaking the illusion that this was ever casual. What had been framed as a jam was now exposed as a test Prince had no intention of failing. The night didn't end with music, it ended with questions. Why invite legends if not to play? Why stop a moment everyone expected to happen? The answers weren't spoken yet. They hovered, unresolved, as Prince packed up his guitar and walked out first, leaving the Stratocaster on its stand, untouched.
The next morning, the anchor detail everyone fixated on was the absence of any recording. No tape, No phone audio, no leaked clip. For a room that had held Prince and Eric Clapton at the same time, the silence was suspicious. According to people close to the event, Prince had made that condition clear in advance: no documentation. If music happened, it would live only in the room. That rule reframed the night retroactively. What looked like a spontaneous jam was actually a controlled environment with invisible walls. By early afternoon, phone calls began. The anchor detail was the wording. Managers didn't ask what happened, they asked why didn't it happen. Clapton's camp reportedly treated the moment as a misunderstanding, a scheduling misread. Prince's team didn't offer clarification. Silence again. That imbalance mattered. In the industry, whoever explains loses leverage. Prince didn't explain. The escalation unfolded in small, deliberate steps. That evening, at a different rehearsal space, Prince played with his own band. The anchor detail was the set list: tight, rehearsed, aggressive. No blues standards, no open-ended solos. According to witnesses, he stretched songs by seconds, not minutes, controlling every swell. The message wasn't subtle. This is how Prince believed music should be shared: authored, not drifted. Meanwhile, Eric Clapton addressed the night indirectly. The anchor detail was a casual comment, reportedly made to another musician, about how jams work best when no one's in charge. It wasn't a criticism, but it landed as a philosophy. Two worldviews, now clearly defined. Clapton's career had been built on conversation between instruments. Prince's had been built on orchestration. Sharing a stage would force one to bend. The next escalation came when a mutual acquaintance suggested a reset, another jam, smaller group, different room. The anchor detail was the proposal itself, passed quietly, almost apologetically. Prince declined. According to accounts, he didn't cite Clapton by name, he cited conditions. "If it's a jam, it's not for me." That sentence circulated quickly. In those 8 words, Prince clarified the thesis of the entire episode. At rehearsal the following night, Prince addressed his band before playing. The anchor detail was his instruction: no autopilot. Musicians later said he was unusually precise, stopping songs mid-bar to correct feel. This wasn't tension spilling over, it was discipline being sharpened. Whatever the jam session represented, Prince was cutting himself away from it cleanly. The industry watched closely. The anchor detail shifted to rumor. Some insiders claimed Prince felt disrespected by the song choice. Others suggested he didn't want a blues narrative defining him alongside Clapton. All of it was speculation, because Prince never corrected any version. The lack of an official story became part of the power play. People argued over meaning because he refused to assign one. A week later, Clapton appeared on stage at another event, jamming freely with younger musicians. The anchor detail was the extended solo, applauded warmly. It proved the jam culture still thrived, just not with Prince. That contrast hardened the divide. This wasn't about capability, it was about consent. The pressure peaked when a journalist asked Prince directly months later about missed collaborations. The anchor detail was his pause before answering. He reportedly smiled and said something close to, "Not everything needs to happen." The room laughed. The question died, but the implication lingered. Prince wasn't against collaboration, he was against dilution. As the story circulated, musicians began reassessing how they approached Prince. The anchor detail was preparation. Anyone invited into his space arrived with arrangements, not ideas, charts, not vibes. The jam session shutdown had become a warning label, passed musician to musician without bitterness. Know the rules before you enter. The escalation now pointed directly at the core incident again: the raised hand, the silence, the Stratocaster that never sounded. All of it had led here, to a realization the room had missed in real time. Prince hadn't shut down a jam, he had prevented a narrative he couldn't control from being written about him. And now, with distance, the system was ready to reinterpret that moment, not as arrogance, not as rivalry, but as a line drawn so cleanly that no one could pretend it was an accident. The only thing left was the detonation itself, why that line mattered so much, and what it cost.
The detonation wasn't loud, it was surgical. The anchor detail returned to the same object everyone remembered from the beginning. Prince's raised hand, palm flat, stopping Eric Clapton's Stratocaster before a single song could take shape. In hindsight, that gesture wasn't interruption, it was authorship asserted in real time. Prince didn't stop music, he stopped a story from being written without his consent. According to multiple accounts, the exact exchange lasted less than 10 seconds. Clapton tested a chord, Prince raised his hand. He said calmly that the room wasn't set for a jam. The consequence followed immediately. Clapton nodded, the guitar went quiet. No argument, no negotiation. The moment sealed itself by how cleanly it ended. The reaction in the room was more revealing than the action. Musicians who had expected fireworks now watched power operate without volume. The anchor detail was posture. Shoulders dropped, instruments were lowered. People understood instantly that this wasn't about musical hierarchy, it was about control of context. Prince wasn't competing with Clapton, he was rejecting the frame that would turn the night into a myth he didn't design. The aftermath began the next day, when the story started traveling without sound. The anchor detail was contradiction. Some told it as a shutdown, others as a misunderstanding, but every version agreed on one fact: Prince decided when music happened. That consensus mattered. It reinforced an already known truth about his career. Nothing involving Prince was accidental. Within weeks, the industry adjusted. The anchor detail was invitation language. Prince was no longer asked to sit in or drop by. He was asked to headline, curate, or not attend at all. The jam session incident clarified his boundaries so completely that people stopped testing them. That was the real fallout, not damaged relationships, but eliminated ambiguity. Eric Clapton never publicly criticized Prince over the moment. The anchor detail was his restraint. In later interviews, Clapton spoke about collaboration as chemistry, noting that not all musicians share the same approach. It was diplomacy, but also truth. Two masters, fluent in different musical languages, choosing not to force translation. Prince's circle absorbed the lesson too. The anchor detail was rehearsal culture. Musicians who worked with him afterward described an environment where freedom existed inside strict architecture. Solos were earned, not assumed. Improvisation happened, but only after the frame was set. The jam that never happened had sharpened that philosophy. Years later, when fans revisited the story online, the anchor detail became the question itself: why stop a moment everyone wanted? The answer, slowly emerging, was that Prince didn't measure success by desire, he measured it by integrity. Sharing a stage with Eric Clapton would have thrilled the audience, but it would have surrendered narrative control to chance. The broader cultural meaning crystallized with time. In Black music history especially, ownership of context has always been as important as ownership of notes. The anchor detail here was the room. Prince understood that who controls the room controls the legacy. Jam sessions often favor whoever history already frames as the default. Prince refused to be defaulted. The final proof came not from that night, but from everything that followed. Prince's performances remained unmistakably his. No diluted stories, no half-owned myths. The Stratocaster silence became part of his legend, not because music was denied, but because intention was preserved. The brutal closing truth is this: some artists make history by playing louder, longer, or together. Prince made history by knowing exactly when not to play at all.